Great, thank you so much, Bethany. So we are going to get started with some introductions today. So diving right in, my name is Kirsten Kippen. I'm the marketing manager with Idealist Consulting. And I've been at Idealist now for about 2 years. And before that, I worked with nonprofits managing scholarships back when pretty much all applications were still paper. And we thought we were really high tech by using SurveyMonkey. So it's come a long way since then. Nonprofit technology has. And I'm thrilled now to work with Idealist Consulting, where our mission is to help nonprofits and small businesses optimize and use Salesforce more powerfully and integrate that with other solutions like Act-On. So we've gone through a path at Idealist of moving from just mass email alone up all the way through marketing automation. And so that journey is a similar journey that we're going to kind of start talking about how you can get started on today. And then I'll hand it over to Rachel.
Hi, thanks for joining everybody today. My name is Rachel Rosen. I am the Marketing Programs Manager here at Act-On Software. And while I don't have a background in nonprofits, I do have a heavy background in marketing automation and helping small businesses and businesses of all sizes really adopt the best practices of marketing automation and really helping them use the different capabilities of marketing automation to help their businesses grow. And we are thrilled to have one of our customers on the presentation today, and we have Kat Krieger joining us from Jefferson Awards Foundation.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Kat. I have been with the Jefferson Awards for about 2 years and in the marketing space for 5 or 6. Here at the Jefferson Awards, I run marketing and communication, but also technology and marketing technology, as such with Act-On, and social and graphic design, and about 8 other hats, as I'm sure many of you understand very intimately at a nonprofit. And I'm really excited to share what we're doing.
Great, thank you, Kat. So with that, we are going to dig into the content for today. So just to set the stage, this is my image in my head when I think about nonprofits starting to adopt marketing automation, because it's such a courageous leap to make on top of all of the hats you're wearing and all of the things that you're doing already. Adopting new technology is challenging, but really, really, really critical as you look towards where you want to go in the next 5 to 10 years as an organization. So these stats on here are actually more relevant to the private sector, but I think they help with kind of understanding why this is an important type of solution to start looking into now. So first of all, 60% of the buyer's journey is complete by the time the buyer reaches out to an organization. And in 2020, just in 5 short years, this rate of completion is projected to be 85% or higher. So in your mind, replace the word buyer with donor or possibly prospect, member, advocate, or volunteer. And these are all people that are going on some sort of journey with your organization as well. And they're starting to expect the same kind of personalized approach when they engage with you as a nonprofit that they get when they're doing when they're relating to much more complex organizations, like putting in an Amazon order, or just trying to register for an event somewhere. The difference is that most nonprofits are not actually there yet with their technology, and so the expectation of the user is not met by the reality of what their experience is when they start to engage with your systems. So you are truly innovators and on the cutting edge by considering marketing automation, and we are going to do our best today to give you kind of some ground spots where you can start with approaching this. So here is our agenda for today. First, we're just going to talk for a few minutes about what is marketing automation, just to set the stage, and how nonprofits can use it. And then we're going to dig into 5 really concrete ways to get started, which is going to be focused primarily around the idea of user personas and donor personas. And then we will move into a case study, which I'm sure you're all super excited about, to hear more from Kat about how Jefferson Awards Foundation has used Act-On to fuel their systems. And then we'll spend some time at the end for Q&A and just putting it all together. So as Bethany said at the beginning, you can save up your questions and we will have time at the end to address those. So just keep them coming through the question panel and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. So what is marketing automation to start? So these items on the screen are key components that you'll usually see in a marketing automation solution. And this includes solutions like Acton. Other ones you might have heard of are Pardot or HubSpot. And typically they're solutions that do much more than just mass email, but email automation is often kind of the heart of what you're achieving through marketing automation. And then all of these other components can kind of amplify and build into to your system so that you can get more of a 360-degree view of what one contact is doing across across your website, across your emails, across your forms that they're submitting, whether they're reading your blog, whether they're engaging on social media. All of those pieces can be facilitated through a marketing automation solution. And they also include, there's also a CRM component where that's integrated with marketing automation. So, for example, I think Kat was saying that her organization is integrating with Salesforce now, and that's a very common one, but there's usually a piece of that as well. So Rachel, I think, were you going to speak to this briefly as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, an important thing to point out here is that there are, as you mentioned, a variety of different marketing automation vendors and platforms that you can choose from. But essentially, they're all offering the same tools and capabilities. But here at Acton, we like to define marketing automation as a platform that's designed to cultivate and engage your donors at every stage of their journey. Because modern marketing and, really communications is all about the digital world. And in order to stay relevant, you really have to broaden your scope and utilize both inbound and outbound marketing tactics across the entire life cycle of your prospects and donors. So the way that you're able to do that is you're attracting your new donors or advocates and to your associations through these inbound activities, and then you're able to effectively nurture those relationships and really expand their use and their education and knowledge of your nonprofit. And then really the platform ties everything together so that you get some really rich reporting on what's really been truly successful for your marketing and communications campaigns that you're running.
Great, thanks, Rachel. So how can nonprofits use it? So before we really dive into some specifics about these solutions, these are 3 key ways that you can think about marketing automation. And we wanted to present this webinar today because usually when you look at a marketing automation website, it's put in terms of sales and how sales and marketing can intersect and how they can improve revenue and that sort of thing, and the lead journey maybe. And so we wanted to just start to break this down into more nonprofit-friendly terms. And so 3 key ways that this might resonate with you is that you can use marketing automation to listen, first of all, so learning what your prospects are interested in through web analytics and through social media engagement. That sort of thing can teach you more about who your prospects are before you even start to talk with them on the phone for the first time. And qualify is a big one as well. So when I used to work for a nonprofit, I know I spent a lot of time just calling through like 50 applicants a day, that kind of thing, just to get a sense of who was, on the program side, applicants was kind of the people that we were reaching. And so we spent a lot of time trying to figure out who was worth spending more energy on, who was actually interested, that kind of thing. And today with marketing automation, you can really use tools like lead scoring and other analytics to focus your time on the most engaged prospects and not just call through everyone all the time. And then finally to measure and grow. So again, we're focusing the conversation today on donors. Since it's end of year, I'm sure you're all busy in the fundraising frame of mind. And so you can really use marketing automation to increase major donors and recurring donors through kind of a moves management process. So a lot of side benefits as well. I would say one of the biggest one is just reduce manual labor. So you're, again, spending less time kind of doing those manual tasks that really amplify burnout and kind of make you crazy. And then finally, consistent branding and fewer duplicate issues too. So these are all These are all benefits you can get from moving towards a marketing automation platform. So these are 5 ways you can get started on this path, and we are going to spend the next bit of the webinar today kind of going through these one by one, starting with identifying your top 3 donor personas and ending with some key performance indicators and reports that will help you measure progress. And I will turn it over to Rachel to get us started with that.
Great, thank you. So I wanted to kind of start us off by giving a framework for how to identify personas for your nonprofits. And I really want to stress how important personas are to really set the stage for your content strategies, because as you're developing content for your various donors and your prospects or audience for your nonprofit, they want more of a content-focused experience. They want something that's personalized and relevant to them. So by now, most marketers and communications professionals recognize how important it is to adopt a content marketing strategy. And that's because the revenue and the return that organizations are seeing from content is remarkable. Recent stats show that website conversion rates are nearly 6 times higher for content marketing adopters versus non-adopters, and that's according to the Aberdeen Group. And that's because, like I mentioned, people want this content-focused interaction from the nonprofits that they're associating with. They want to be the hero of their own story, and the content that you're creating should really address those needs, what their needs are, what their interests are, and what their pain points might be. So knowing all that, I'm going to walk you through how to create personas so that you can start to tailor your content to address the needs of your different donor personas. So for the personas that you're creating, you want to give each different persona a name to help you differentiate them. You're going to start by defining their common demographic characteristics, and then what their defining characteristics are, like what are their interests, or why do they choose to donate and affiliate themselves with your nonprofit. So in order to do this, you can start by looking at the data that you're collecting as 3 distinct layers, which are demographic, psychographic, and behavioral data. And on the next slide, we have a screenshot that shows the 3 different layers here. So the traditional method of profiling donors through demographics and firmographics is still pretty widely used. But this information is stuff that you usually already have. Like you know who your donors are. So you're able to pinpoint some of that information within your database. It's the information like geographic location, gender, income, for example, education. But to really dig deeper, we need to add in our psychographics and behavioral layer to really make a difference in the content that we're creating. So psychographics is where you can take an educated guess about psychological commonalities about our audience. So this goes beyond that service level of age and income and looks at common motivators and pain points that unify groups within your donor audience. So this data isn't normally as straightforward to collect, but marketers are able to, and communications professionals are able to consolidate this type of data by creating avatars for these groups based on those common characteristics. So to give a little world, for the marketing automation specifically, we're able to separate our personas by job titles. So we look at marketers, C-suite titles, and sales titles as a way to segment and identify commonalities within each group. And for the nonprofit sector, you could actually do something very similar when analyzing your donors. Like, do you have government and federal aid donations? That could be one persona. Do you have corporate and business organizations as another donor? And then your third persona could be, personal donations, people that aren't affiliated to any sort of organization or federal entity. Even too, if you're a nonprofit like Jefferson Awards Foundation, you can segment by students and teachers and press. And Kat's going to give some examples of this later on in the presentation today. But with the help of marketing automation, you can track every digital interaction a donor has had with any of your digital assets that live online. So you can start to factor their behaviors into your profiles as well, which will really come in handy when you're creating content for various programs and campaigns, especially nurturing, which we'll go into in a bit. So on the next slide, I'm sure many of you are thinking that, yes, this sounds great and logical, but how do you obtain this information? And the best place to start is by asking around internally. You're going to want to talk to your donation coordinators, your events teams, I mean, really anybody that has any interaction with your donors, because they're interacting with them every day, and they probably have some really fantastic insights about what their needs and their interests are. And if you have the budget to spend, sometimes doing focus groups or surveys is another really great way to get this information. But if you do have a limited budget, definitely collaborating internally is a great place to start here. So to help us out, we do have a few questions that you can be asking. But before I move on to those questions, I really wanted to stress here that the objective here is to identify commonalities and underlying patterns. So in doing this, you should be able to identify about 3 to 5 groups of likely or ideal donors for your nonprofit. But you probably know who your donors are already, so you're just conducting this process so that you can segment them based on their interests, so that you're able to provide really relevant content that's personalized to their interests. So not only does this help you build trust, but it helps build a stronger connection with your nonprofit when you're serving that really personalized experience. And so here are some of the questions that we recommend using. The first one is, what do they perceive as valuable? Is it a tax break? Is it some sort of donation incentive? Or do they just do it for that altruistic feeling? What keeps them up at night? Which causes are they the most worried about? What is their stake in them? How involved are they getting? What are their aspirations? Whether they're campaigning for world peace or just looking for some form of charitable affiliation. Where do they spend their time engaging with your organization or nonprofit? Are they primarily on your website, or do they respond to emails, or are they really active on social channels? How can you help them solve issues that your nonprofit faces? Can they use their network word about your cause, or are they able to provide just monetary donations? And what are some of the common objections that they may have? Do they not have money right now, or are they not happy with the transparency of how the funds are being used? These questions are a really great starting point for obtaining that psychographic information that's really going to help make your content stand out. And so I know this might seem a little redundant, but one of the most important steps that you can do is to take all of this information that you're collecting and format it into a nice, concise, and easy-to-read format that you can share with everybody on your team. And as a thank you for attending today, everybody is going to receive a copy of a workbook that Acton has called 4 Steps to Creating a Content Plan. And on page 4 of this workbook, there's actually a template for completing this persona matrix for you. So keep in mind that the workbook is designed for B2B marketers, but all of the same concepts and principles still apply here in the nonprofit world. But by condensing everything onto one sheet, it can act as an easy reference point so that everybody in your company, whether they're interacting with any donor, all of the messaging and that communication remains consistent. And that's how you can make this really easily referenceable. And so once you've collected all of that great psychographic and demographic information to identify who your persona should be, you can start to segment your communications based on their behavior and where your donors are at in their journey. So you're going to be using the great insights that you've developed from the personas to deliver relevant content and messaging to each persona at the different stages in their journey. And this really helps enable you to send the right messages at the right time to the right people to really kind of deliver that customized and personalized experience that I've been talking about. And this cycle that we show here on screen represents what we as marketers or communications professionals need to accomplish for each donor's journey. We're attracting them to the nonprofit, we're capturing their information, we're nurturing that relationship by providing targeted emails and targeted content, and then we're converting them into actual donors and expanding their interest in your nonprofit to help them donate on a more regular basis and to be really affiliated with the nonprofit. And this expansion phase is really particularly important for nonprofits because this is where you can share what the donations have achieved. And so that everybody that has donated can really feel good about their contributions and want to keep contributing to help support your causes. And one of the best uses for marketing automation is how you're able to use this information in nurture programs, which we'll go into right now. So let's level set here and define nurturing. What is it? Nurturing is an automated email program that encourages your audience to interact with your nonprofit. Sounds pretty simple, right? But nurturing is so important because when your potential donors are attracted to your nonprofit, they aren't always ready to donate right away. Does that mean that they'll never donate? No. It just means that they're just not ready right now. So nurturing allows you to keep connected and really stay top of mind as they go through this consideration process. So nurturing, or email drips as a lot of marketers call them, it allows you to do just that. It allows you to warm up your donors over time so that you stay top of mind. And most of the time, the nurturing process is not exclusively about a hard sell. That comes later, once your donors are warmed up. You're educating them about your nonprofit. You're responding to their needs, and you're developing trust with them through a series of emails and other communications. You don't want to turn them off by sending emails that say, like, send your donation now. Emails that barely know anything about your nonprofit. I mean, they're not going to bite. You want to get to know them, and you want them to get to know you and to start to trust you. So you want to provide really relevant and educational information about why they should trust you and why you're a great nonprofit to associate with. So you need to know that your job as the marketer or communications professional really is to build that trust and give them information that they need to move through the process to actually making a donation. And one of the ways that you're able to do that, as I've mentioned, is with your content. So once you've developed those personas and great content for each personas, it's time to build your nurture programs. And one of the best places to start is to start mapping out your content at the different stages of that journey. So really quickly, we have a template here for mapping content, which is also in that workbook that we're going to be sharing with everyone. And so the goal here is to really understand the journey and support it with content. And you're going to trigger these marketing messages or emails based on where they're at in their journey. And Kirsten's going to go into this in a bit more depth in a bit. But once we have all of the goals of each stage mapped out, you can start to fill it in with content that would apply to each stage for each of your personas and begin building your nurture program from there. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at what a nurture program looks like. So when you get to the point of putting your first automated program together, you're going to want to sketch a plan out. And here are two examples here. On the left, we have an example that's a very simple nurture path. We have 4 different emails scheduled here. You have wait steps in between. And basically the goal here is that specific actions within those emails are going to have certain points attached to them through lead scoring. And so once somebody reaches a threshold of, we know that they are more than likely ready to talk to your development team. So as soon as it hits that 30-point threshold, it's going to automatically open up in your CRM if you have that integration set up. And then your development team is going to be notified that, yes, they are indeed ready for contact. And then another example we have here on the right is that you can segment once they've talked to your development team and you have deemed that they do need a little bit more nurturing. You can base them off of the different personas. They can get different emails. And you can do some really cool things with conditional branching and dynamic messaging so that you can set up one nurture program and have dynamic content that will serve up the persona content based on which persona they are. And here are just a few tips we have to help you get started. So when you're going into nurture programs, the most important thing to do is to know what you want them to do after the program. You have to know what action you're trying to elicit from your donors when building programs like this. Are you trying to just educate them about a new donation they can make, or are you trying to get them to follow you on social channels or share information with friends and family? Knowing all this information up front is going to help you build out the emails and the plan for that particular nurture program. Tip number 2 is link your programs together. You can have somebody move from one program to another without having to do it manually or create conditional rules. And you can do this based on their behavior or even non-behavior. You know, have they opened a particular email? Then yes, they can move into a different nurture path. If they've ignored the email and haven't done anything, then you can put them into another nurture path that's designed to provide more education and information to kind of help them spur more engagement. Tip number 3 is know the short and the long paths. Some of your donors are going to take different paths. Some are going to be ready to donate right away, and so you don't have to do as much nurturing with them, and then you can move them into more of an educational nurturing in that kind of expand path and really just teach them more about your nonprofit so that they get more engaged and spread the word. Or, some people that are going to take a while to donate, you can put them into a longer path. And the last tip that I think is probably the most important here is to consider one-offs instead of editing nurture programs. Nurturing is a great email capability to kind of add more automation into your emails so that you as a marketing or communications professional, anybody who really is setting up these programs, doesn't have to manually send out these emails all the time. But not every email is going to fit within that path. If you have something like a press release or an announcement about some new donation that you've got or some, government funding, consider sending that as a one-off. Or, if you have an event or a gala happening, those invitations should be sent off as one-off emails opposed to editing them into your nurturing programs, because that'll cause you a bit more work. And like I said, not everything fits within nurture, and you definitely can still send those one-off email messages. So now that we've talked about nurturing, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back off to Kirsten to talk about how you can schedule your nurture programs to really coincide with your communications calendar.
Great, thank you, Rachel. So yeah, I guess I want to just pause for a second here and acknowledge that I know a lot of you maybe aren't on a marketing automation tool yet where you can set this up as fancily as we just saw, and that's okay. And really kind of focusing on those personas and getting even just a really simple, 4 email drip campaign setup is something that you can do through a simpler solution too before you're moving up into something like Act On. So there's a lot of different levels you can approach this with. You don't have to go all in all at once. And one of the other kind of foundational pieces that's really critical as you're starting to move in this direction is to have an editorial calendar and to start really tracking what kind of content you're producing and who it is designed to go out to. So this is really critical once you get up to those amazing marketing automation solutions with nurturing campaigns, because if you have like a 5 email series that then goes into another program that has several more emails after the holidays perhaps, you're going to have something to say in all of those emails, right? It's not just a question of creating it and walking away. So content on your blog or on your website can really help with giving you some ideas on what to put in those emails besides just donate now, join now, that kind of thing over and over. So we have some examples here of how to fold content into your nurturing program. So this is the same graph that we saw a few minutes ago with Rachel. And then I just added a layer here of some example pieces of content. So content means not just email copy, but also all of these different communication assets that you can develop. So blog posts, videos, an FAQ document, an infographic, those are all examples of content that you can use in your nurturing programs. And so at the first stage here, just to walk through this briefly, when a donor is just becoming aware of your nonprofit, maybe we can take the example of a nonprofit that sends veterans to help with firefighting support. And so our target persona here is maybe a veteran and their spouse who are interested in donating themselves because they feel that affinity with your mission. And so maybe you can have a blog post, first of all, to warm them up to this idea about ways that you can help prevent forest fires. A little Smokey the Bear style there. And then in stage 2, the donor is becoming more interested in starting to research your cause. So maybe at this point you want to actually show them a video and have a day in the life with one of your firefighter volunteers. Stage 3, they're evaluating specifics more. And so at this point, they're probably wondering, like, how do you set yourself apart as a nonprofit from all of the other veteran organizations that help with firefighting? And maybe your field is even more wide than that. You know, if you're a breast cancer organization or doing work with, I don't know, kids and education, that sort of thing, it can be hard to really show how you're unique. And so having an FAQ document or some blog posts about how you're uniquely serving the problems that you're addressing can be really helpful. Stage 4, you could fold in an infographic perhaps. So at this point, they're validating their donation decision before they pull the trigger, and showing them what kind of impact they can have could be really huge. So if you can show, what just $20 would do to impact the issue they're concerned about, that's huge. And a little picture about this goes a lot further than words sometimes. And there's a lot of free or low-cost infographic tools available online too. If you're thinking, oh, I don't have a design team, that's going to be impossible. There are some ways that you can get around this, and when you think about the impact it might have, it might be worth just spending a little time looking into that. So, and then finally, stage 5, they complete the donation and become an advocate. So at this point, they are spreading the word. They're sharing what this cool organization did with all their friends. And so giving them something that they can easily share at this stage is really key. And so maybe that means a blog post or an infographic on the impact again, that your campaign had on this key issue, and make it shareable with buttons for them to share through Facebook or other types of social media. So briefly, this is a quick picture of what an editorial calendar could look like. And so these are some of the pieces of content that we just spoke to. And at Idealist Consulting, we just use a Google Doc for organizing this. There's also ways that you can use marketing automation tools, so you have kind of an all-in-one repository for this. But the key here is just trying to plan out a couple weeks in advance at least, or ideally much more than that, and get into a rhythm of when you're putting out different types of content, and get more people than just you involved with producing that. So assign authors and make sure you document when you want a draft due, when you want to publish, and who your target persona is going to be for that piece, so that then you can look back at this and fold these pieces easily into your nurturing campaigns. And then finally, an offer or a call to action is really key at the end of each of these, and any email that you put out as well. So give them a reason to act on what you're doing now, rather than just waiting a couple weeks. So maybe there's a time-sensitive thing where if they donate soon, you can have a match donation, or there's a few spots left for volunteering. That kind of thing is really powerful. And then finally, make sure that you have some ways to measure progress. So before you start out on any kind of new technology project, it's really critical to figure out what your goals are. And a lot of times you don't have to think of new goals. You can fold in things that you're already measuring as an organization. So Beth Cantor, I'm sure many of you have heard of, produced this little graph in the screen right now, and she wrote a book called Measuring the Network's Nonprofit that goes into great detail about some different KPIs and metrics that nonprofits can measure to be able to tell if what they're doing is making a difference and having impact on their issues. So these are just things related to marketing automation that you might be interested in measuring, whether it's email clicks or blog analytics, or then going back to some of your big picture organization goals and looking at donation amount per individual. Those are all things that you can track on a high level, and then if you have a solution like Acton integrated with Salesforce, you can pull reports to be able to see kind of if your actions are helping move the needle on that. All right, so before we turn it over to Kat to get into a case study, I wanted to just speak briefly to some signs that you might be ready for a marketing automation solution. And Idealist Consulting is also running a free assessment right now where we will help you have an individual conversation about this and help you decide whether MailChimp is all we can handle right now, and give you a few tips for making the most of that, or moving upwards into a more complex solution. So we'll send a link so that you guys can take advantage of that after today's webinar, along with the free resource that Acton is providing. But a couple of brief signs that you might be ready for a marketing automation solution. I think the key is that you really are feeling some pain with your current solution, and you think there might be a better way. So that probably speaks to many of you, but some other key signs are that you have a couple staff who are dedicated to communications. You have at least 5,000 contacts, and typically an organizational revenue of several million or more. Other than that, you might be too small to really take advantage of this or not have the staff who could really help you make the most of it. But again, I think the really key point is just feeling some pain with your existing system. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kat to talk a little more about how her organization has used Axon and personas.
Great, thank you again so much. So first, let me just tell you a little bit about the Jefferson Awards. Here, we power public service. So what does that mean? Well, you could be 5 or 105 or anywhere in between. Or you could maybe be looking for an easy-to-do service project, or, on the other hand, intense service leadership or mentorship. And that's where we come in. We're here and we celebrate and elevate service at every level. You know, we're in our 43rd year and have 5 very active programs, which in turn gives us very many unique sets of constituents or buyer personas that all really have different needs and wants and need to be communicated with in different ways. So we communicate with them now with the help of Axon. And really, I think we've been using Axon for a little over a year now. And, you know, we sort of did come to that point where, you know, we had too many people in our database and we just really couldn't communicate with them in the way that we needed to. And that's at the point at which we brought on Axon. Just to briefly describe, I mean, you can see on the slide here, I'll read a bit deeper after the webinar. But just briefly, V360, Students in Action, and Globe Changers are our youth-based program. Champions is for organizations and companies. And our media partner program, which I'll talk about the most, really we work with over 120 newspapers, television, and radio stations across the country. And they, in turn, reach out into their local communities to look for people who are giving back, and they recognize them with a local Jefferson Award. And, you know, depending on where you are in the country, you may have seen the Jefferson Awards featured on your local news. If you go to the next slide, I've broken out just for that media partner program all of our constituent groups and sort of paired them together. And also what, you know, they may be looking for with those, you know, what the opportunity is for both JAF and what the opportunity is for the media partner or constituent group. So with the media ownership, as well as editors and reporters, we get a modest fee from our media partners for using our branding and running our programming. But the biggest thing we get from them is free media. Because they're essentially running our program on the news, sometimes on a weekly basis, depending on the news outlet. So we're getting a ton of free media. In turn, they get great feel-good stories and content, and we get that content too. So for nominees and nominators at both a local and national level, there's a similar workflow and a mutual opportunity that goes back and forth. So we all share the feel-good content in the story, and in the process we gather potential and future donors. What we frequently hear from our local Jefferson Awards winners is that winning a Jefferson Awards was really a game-changing moment for them. You know, many who went on to then build a global nonprofit after they were recognized at a local level. Go on to the next slide. So to dig in a bit deeper into what that buyer or constituent journey is, for just local nominations as an example, we use an Act-On form, a nomination comes into our site, and an automated email goes out. That's pretty simple. On the local level, there's a selection committee that picks the winner, and that then again triggers another automated email and welcomes them to the overall Global Jefferson Awards family. Simultaneously, there might be a story in the local news or in the newspaper that we share. On a yearly basis, we have a huge national ceremonies in Washington, D.C., and every media partner will send one of their winners to D.C. a year. So when that gets reflected in the database, again, we send out an automated email. Just go on to the next slide. So what you can see here, this is actually a shot from our Act-On backend, and we really lean on the intelligence that we get from that platform in terms of who's looking at our email, who's opening them, how we divide into constituent groups. This is just a real small shot of all of our different segmentations that we do. But I can tell here who's engaged with an email, who's opened and clicked, when they've done it, and then can target further emails much better. For example, we're getting ready, as I'm sure many of you are, to launch our end-of-year giving campaign, and that will go out to many of our sets of constituents, but I will lean on this intelligence in order to send better emails and better content. We also run some automated programs, particularly around our Lead 360 program, where we're tracking service impact throughout the year.
All right, thanks, Kat. So I think at this point we are going to open it up for Q&A, and Bethany is going to step in to bring up some of the questions that have come up.
All right, so our first one is going to Rachel. In your experience, looking at your most successful
All right, so
the phone cut out.
Yeah, sorry about that. We'll try one more time here.
Okay.
So we can take the first question. We're asking for Rachel or Kat, I guess, if in your experience, what was it that made a marketing automation program particularly successful?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, in your experience, what was it, can you point to any key factors that make a marketing automation program particularly successful?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that what makes programs really successful is when you really take the time to really integrate all of your different technologies that you're using into your marketing automation. Because really, as Kat really featured as well, is you're able to use the platform to do all of your functional activities, but even more than that, it provides a lot of really rich data so that you can continually optimize what you're doing. So I think one of the best ways to really get the most bang for your buck with a marketing automation program is to really make sure that you're taking the time to integrate everything so that you're getting clean data and that you're making sure that everything comes into one dashboard, and that should be the marketing automation dashboard, to really give you insights into what's working, what isn't working, what could you be doing better. So I think people that are able to really make sure that they have a clean integration and really take the time to do, it can seem daunting to set up some of these automated tasks because you're developing all these emails at once, you're developing all the content at once, but in the long run, you're saving yourself a lot of time being able to automate processes in the future. So I think, taking the time to integrate and really taking the time to learn the programs and really build them out and learn how to use your platform to the utmost of your ability is really going to make the difference between, somebody that is really successful and somebody that is, some nominal results.
All right.
Great. So let's see. There was a question from Chad here to Kat. And his question was, other than email marketing statistics, what is the most beneficial aspect of Act-On? For example, there's website visitor tracking, social publishing, or other pieces besides just email. What would you say, Kat?
I mean, I think it's just how I'm able to integrate it with everything. I mean, for example, we use Act-On for all of our registration forms across all of our programs. It integrates really well with our WordPress backend, so no matter what we're doing, I know I can get it all into Act-On and see it in one place. You know, I think Rachel mentioned this, but we use Salesforce for our CRM, and it integrates so nicely there. You know, it's just being able to really pull it all together and have the intelligence of all our constituents. I mean, we have a pretty large database of about 36,000 contacts, so it's really daunting, and we're doing it with really little resources. Despite those 43 years, you know, there's really just, I think, 25 of us full-time. So having just such a powerful solution that sometimes I feel like we're barely scratching the surface as to what Act-On can do after the first year. But, you know, I'm certainly glad, you know, to have them as a partner, because as we continue to grow and scale, you know, I know that they'll grow and scale with us.
Great. I'm going to try this one more time. Okay, great. I'm getting a thumbs up on audio here. Do you use behavioral score and clicks on web pages, or just clicks and emails to keep people engaged? And are there ways to target different messages for people that click or don't click on emails? And that's a question from Samantha.
And I can take that. Yes, you can do scoring on landing pages. One of the better ways to do the scoring on landing pages is if you do have some sort of form or call to action where they're clicking through to, you know, through to something else. That's typically the best kind of scoring point because they've taken an action. Emails, definitely, any click-throughs through emails, everything can be scored. And it's one of the best ways is really just orienting your scoring triggers on actions. But, you know, one thing I'm going to share is we have a really successful email program that we use here at Act-On. And even when there is a lack of action, you can do some sort of trigger email campaign, because we have a couple of pages on our website that we know are very good indicators that somebody is really interested in the platform and the product. So we have set up workflows so that when people have visited these pages, not necessarily taken an action, just visited those pages, they're going to get a triggered email that says, hey, we caught you peeking, you know, take a deeper look into Act-On, and it then directs them to looking at a 10-minute demo video of our product. So even it just shows the capabilities that even if somebody's not taking an action, and even if they're just looking on your site, if they're a known prospect, if you have their email address, you can still do automated and trigger messages even without that specific scoring event, to really kind of trigger and automate and to keep that communication fresh, because in that instance, you're engaging with them as they're engaging with you, which really makes a difference in terms of conversions and having people have a more substantial interaction and relationship with your brand or your nonprofit.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. So I'm going to combine a couple of questions for this next one from Jessica and Samantha. When you're getting started, would you advise starting out small, setting up one test, then making some tweaks and changes, or doing a bunch all at once? And then how long does it typically take for a company or organization to really get up and running, feel familiar, and see a comfortable return from a marketing automation platform?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start off first, and then I'm sure that Kat has some great insights on this. But you know, here at Act-On, typically your implementation is about 6 weeks. You're going to go through classes and training with one of our, we call them customer service managers. They are there dedicated to help supporting you, and they are a dedicated resource that you can reach out to at any time They help you get your program set up and really show you the features of everything that you can use. Implementation times are different with every marketing automation vendor, depending on who you're implementing, but ours is typically about 6 weeks. And I think that probably, as Kat kind of mentioned, sometimes you feel like you're barely scratching the surface of what you can do. There are so many different capabilities of a marketing platform. So I think that really it's in the question. You kind of hit the nail on the head there. To start small. Get something going and up and running, and learn from that continually as you move along. Because as you start to build things and gain experiences from what you've built, you're going to learn about what you want to do differently and how you can do it better in the future. And so starting small and building out from there really is a great way to make sure that as you're building more, you're doing it correctly and you're using the insights that you've gleaned from what you've already done.
Yeah, I would definitely 100% agree with Rachel. I would say it probably took us about 6 to 8 weeks to get going. And a shout out to Vaughn, who is, my day-to-day resource at Act-On sometimes. We started out relatively small. Like I said, we have 5 programs, and so the way we sort of implemented it is like, okay, what were our easy wins in terms of, moving from a way less sophisticated platform to Act On? And it just gone from there. And we are actually working on one of our most technical and challenging integrations right now that will tie into a big automated program. And now that's been, a little over a year. But, having Act On our side has been amazing.
Great. And to sort of dovetail from that, who ultimately uses this tool? Is it a development tool, membership, management, and how many staff are required to run it?
I mean, I can answer that from my perspective. In terms of marketing users or admins, it's basically just me, and I have one other program director that's, super in the weeds in terms of being a marketing user. But I mean, my whole staff uses it. They primarily use it through our Salesforce integration, so they're sending all of their emails via Act On without ever clicking out of Salesforce. But we use it at every level. So I think no matter whether you're developing or, just working on from a communications perspective, it can be helpful for everyone at every level of the organization.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I think kind of one of the new terms that we've coined here at Act On is kind of this team trifecta. And we define that as marketing, sales, and customer support. I mean, really anybody that has any sort of communication with your donors or your audience in general. Those are the people that are going to see the most benefit out of a platform like this, because it's a way to keep your communication consistent. And like Kat mentioned, we have integrations with CRM systems, so your sales team is really able to use this to their ability as well without logging out of the software that they're used to using. They're able to get access right in their sales or their CRM platforms. And really, I think in customer support and in communication, it's just a communication tool. So anybody that is communicating with your donors and your audience is going to have a benefit and would be able to use this platform. Marketing automation, there have been huge strides made from when it was first developed to now on the ease of use and how easy it is for somebody that has no background in using this type of technology can really get up and running pretty quickly and can learn how to use it fairly intuitively.
Great, thanks. So this is sort of a combined question. We had Chad asking, Kat, what other marketing automation solutions did you consider? And then maybe Rachel could touch on how is Act On different from other solutions?
Yeah, I mean, we were using vertical response before we moved over to Act On. We knew we wanted something that had more functionality, and but where we still really got a lot of bang for our buck. We considered Pardot an exact target. Wasn't sure if we went in more sort of from a B2B angle or B2C. But ultimately, we went with Act On because it had all the functionality we needed and then some. It integrated with Salesforce, which was hugely important to us. And, the price was right.
Great, thanks. And we're so happy to have Jefferson Awards Foundation on board. Love seeing the things that you do every day. I've talked to Vaughn. You gave him the shout out. He's a big fan. But in terms of marketing automation or Act On in general, how it differs from other marketing automation platforms, I mean, like I mentioned at the beginning, any platform is going to give you essentially the same core capabilities. But where I think that Act On is a little bit different is we really focus on kind of the small to mid-size and entry-level users. Some of the platforms that have been around for a really long time are more geared towards enterprise levels and teams that have 50 marketing staff and a really big IT team that can help you out with some really complicated integrations. Act On is supposed to be easy to use, and it is. A team of one can, like Kat, can get things up and running and can start to see the return very simply and very easily. And I think that where we differ from some of the other vendors is where you see more of a focus on inbound, but Act On, we really like to focus on kind of the whole life cycle and not just attracting people to your nonprofit, but continuing that engagement and continuing that communication so that you can expand their trust and their advocacy of your nonprofit and really turn them into lifetime donors and lifetime fans of the work that you're doing.
Great. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks to all the attendees out there for coming to today's webinar. We're going to show our contact information right now, and if you have any questions or comments about today's content, if you're curious about that free marketing automation assessment, please feel free to reach out. Thanks once again to Rachel, Kat, and Kirsten for your perspectives and info. We appreciate everyone's time and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.